Welcome to this course on WordPress Fundamentals, the very basics. My name is Syed and I'll be the instructor for this course. I've been in the training industry for a little over 20 years and I've trained thousands of students over the past years. I specialize in making complex material real easy to follow and understand. Now this course, let me tell you about this course a little bit. We start off with the basics of HTML and CSS. I'll demonstrate what HTML tags are and how does it differentiate with CSS. So we'll take a look at what CSS selectors are, properties, values, and so on. So you'll get a basic understanding of these two, HTML and CSS. Then we'll dive into the WordPress dashboard and I'll demonstrate different elements that are part of the dashboard, which we will use, and I'll demonstrate in various lessons how to use these in creating a responsive website. Well, first we'll create a site and then I'll also demonstrate how to create a responsive site as well. So we'll use plugins, for example. We will use menus. I'll demonstrate how to configure those menus in WordPress, how to set up your page, how to insert a slider on your web page or a blog if you're creating that. So everything that you need to know about WordPress, I'll cover in this course. And more importantly, I'll also include practice exercises so that you can practice as you go along. So for example, if you cover a lesson, I'll ask you to create the HTML code, or I'll provide you the solution as well, so not to worry. So who should take this course? If you're a beginner, that's wonderful, because I'll walk you through step-by-step and hands-on tutorials how to create your web page using WordPress. If you are an intermediate or expert user, that's fine too, because you get to learn maybe a lot of the new tips and techniques in WordPress. Why should you take this course? We all need blogs, we all need online presence, one way or the other, whether it's for yourself, your personal blog, or for your business. If you're an entrepreneur, student, or own a business, you need an online presence. So therefore we need some kind of a website. And WordPress is a wonderful platform that requires no programming, no coding, just a matter of configurations. And that's exactly what I demonstrate in this course. So no need to know about PHP program or Java programming language or any of these languages. Let me in fact show you step by step how and what we'll cover in this course. So the course agenda is pretty straightforward. I'm going to focus right on the meat part of this course where we develop our site using WordPress. I also include a lot of the bonus lectures in this course. So you'll get to see how you can set up your own personal web server using the XAMPP server. Even though in this course, to all my students, I provide free Claydesk web hosting service. So you get to open a free account. There's no catch to it. Just open a free web hosting account, upload your site, practice, and play with it. And that's the best way to learn. So you get to play with a live server, and that's all free. If you need to use WordPress within your own computer, then you need to install XAMPP server so you can set up your local host. So I'll give you both of those lectures as a bonus. Don't forget to leave the reviews. These are important. Udemy has changed a lot of the review mechanisms, and as instructors, we tend to follow what we get as a feedback from my students, and that's important. So I want to make sure that you keep engaged. I also want to make sure that you practice once you watch a lesson. So, what are you waiting for? Click on the button that says, "Take this course now," and I will see you in class. In this lesson, we're going to start off with the fundamentals of HTML and CSS. HTML, of course, is our hypertext markup language, and then CSS is cascading style sheet. Here's the agenda. We'll begin by taking a look at what is HTML, followed by our conceptual understanding of cascading style sheets. Then we'll dive deeper into some of the common HTML terms so that you understand what the HTML structure looks like and how does it function. In comparison, our fourth agenda point is understanding CSS. How is it structured? How does it work? what can it do for us. And then finally, in conclusion, we'll recap the common differences, the similarities, and functionalities of HTML and CSS. So here's the overview. Before we actually begin our journey to learn about building websites or doing some programming or development, the hypertext markup language HTML and cascading style sheet CSS, it is important to understand the differences between the two languages. Not only that, we must be able to identify the syntax of each language and some common terminology between these two languages as well. So what is HTML? It's hypertext markup language. Gives content structure and meaning by defining that content as, for example, headings, paragraphs, or images. CSS, or cascading style sheets, on the other hand, is a presentation language created to style the appearance of content. For example, fonts or colors. So there's a distinct difference between HTML and CSS. So elaborating on the differences between HTML and CSS, the two languages are independent of one another. They may look alike, they may function alike at times, but they are independent and should remain that way. CSS should not be written inside of an HTML document and vice versa. So as a rule, HTML will always represent content and CSS will always represent the appearance of that content. Okay, so you ought to remember the basic difference and how to keep these two scripting languages separate. Moving on to common HTML terms. The three important and most common terms regarding HTML you should be familiar with are elements, tags, and attributes. So we're going to take a look at each one of these in greater detail. What are elements, what are tags, and attributes. And the objective is for you to understand the fundamental concept of HTML and to identify HTML language. So elements are simply the designators that define the structure and content of objects within a page. Some of the more frequently used elements, for instance, include multiple levels of headings, such as identified by H1 tag through H6 elements, or the anchor tag, the div, span, strong, and there are hundreds of them. Elements are also identified by the use of less than and greater than angle brackets. So every time you see the angle brackets surrounding the element name, this means that they are identified as being elements. The next important concept in HTML is tags. The use of less than and greater than angle brackets surrounding an element creates what is known as a tag. Tags most commonly occur in pairs of opening and closing tags. So whenever there's an opening tag, there has to be a closing tag. An opening tag simply marks the beginning of an element. A closing tag marks the end of an element. As an example, an anchor link, for example, will have an opening tag of A within the angle brackets and a closing tag of \A within the angle brackets. And these brackets are sometimes interchangeably referred to as less than sign or greater than sign, so you ought to keep that in mind as well. And then the third element is the attributes. Attributes are properties used to provide additional information about an element. So for instance, the most common attribute include the ID attribute, which simply identifies an element, the class attribute, which classifies an element, or the SRC attribute, which specifies a source for embeddable content, such as when we insert images onto our web page, the HTML used will contain the SRC attribute. And similarly, the href attribute, which provides a hyperlink reference to a linked source. So here, for instance, an example such as an anchor tag that starts off with the href and then provides a link to a certain website, and then of course our closing brackets with the \anchor tag. So here's a quick recap and further elaboration of the HTML structure. So the first is the element, the middle part is our attribute, and then of course our tag that closes upon the elements and the attributes. Okay. All right, moving on to CSS, the cascading style sheet. In addition to HTML terms, there are also a few common CSS terms you will want to familiarize yourself, such as selectors, properties, and values. And as with the HTML terminology, the more you work with CSS, obviously the more sense terms will become second nature to you. So first, the selectors. As elements are added to a web page, they may be styled using CSS. A selector simply designates exactly which element within our HTML to target and apply styles to, such as you may want to change the color, size, and position. Selectors may include a combination of different qualifiers to select unique elements. So for example, you may want to select every paragraph on a page or simply just a specific paragraph on a page. Within cascading style sheets, selectors are followed with curly brackets, which encompass the styles to be applied to the selected element. So anything that falls within those curly brackets is where styles will be applied to that particular element. Properties. Once an element is selected, a property determines the styles that will be applied to that element. So property names fall after the selector within the curly brackets and immediately preceding a colon. So for example, you can use background, font size, height, width, and so forth. Values within cascading style sheet. So far we've selected an element with a selector and determined what style we'd like to apply with the property. Now we can determine the behavior of that property with a value. Values can be identified as the text between the colon and the semicolon. So for example, in this small CSS block, you can see the element, the property, and the value. P being the element, color being the property, and of course our value is 16 pixels. PX stands for pixels. So in conclusion, just think you now know the basics of HTML and CSS. As we continue and you spend more time writing HTML and CSS, you'll definitely become more comfortable with the two languages. To recap, so far we've covered the following: the differences between HTML and CSS, so you have to keep things separate and understand that these are two independent languages. Getting acquainted with HTML elements, tags, and attributes. And with cascading style sheet, we talked about selectors, properties, and values. So hope this helps, and let's move to our next lesson. So in this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to download XAMPP, which is a web server. Now first, what is a web server? So think of a web server as going to a restaurant and ordering something off of the menu. So the waiter comes and takes your order, goes to the kitchen, and brings that order. So think of that restaurant as a web server, and then of course your instructions are to bring something for you, whether it is food or drink, and so on. So similarly, a web server is nothing but fetches a set of pages for you when you ask for certain pages to be displayed. So the fundamental two elements that make up a web server is obviously the user and then the server that serves you web pages. The third element that makes up a web server is the database. In other words, the database is where your login, your passwords essentially are stored. So in a nutshell, a web server is something that hosts your websites and allows you to create and manage multiple web pages. Now there are various web servers out there, such as the Apache web server. There are other personal web servers out there. There are hundreds of them. And if you're familiar with hosting companies like GoDaddy or HostGator, for instance, they provide web servers where you can upload your websites once you create them. But in this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to create our own web server, how to download and configure your computer to become a web server. In other words, all of the development or the website development, for instance, you will be doing on your own computer. which will make your computer as a local web server or act as a local host among several free web servers. So let me in fact give you the definition of a web server. So I'm just going to go to Google and type web server, and it will give me a small description such as a web server is simply a computer system that processes requests via HTTP, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and that's the basic network protocol used to distribute information on the World Wide Web. So the term can refer either to the entire system or specifically to the software that accepts and supervises the HTTP requests. So in this lesson, we are going to create our own server so that we are able to host our own web pages locally on our computer. So let's go ahead. Let me search the web server. The one that we're going to use in this lesson is called XAMPP. So I'm going to use Google to just simply navigate to the XAMPP keyword, and my search results, notice, are displayed. I can download XAMPP from sourceforge.net, and there are other sites as well. But sourceforge.net, pretty reliable site, so we're going to use this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on XAMPP, and this brings us to the download page where I can download the XAMPP. So once again, the URL is sourceforge.net/projects/XAMPP, or simply go to Google, type in XAMPP, and it will take you to this page. Once you're on this page, you can download XAMPP for either Windows, Mac, Solaris, or Linux. So depending upon your own operating system, you can download XAMPP accordingly. Another thing I want to mention here before we actually begin our download is that it's an easy to install Apache distribution containing MySQL, PHP, and Perl, and other scripting languages as well. I can also go to the XAMPP website. So let me navigate there as well. Just simply right click, open a new window, just to show you the various XAMPP installers and download. So this web server called XAMPP will work with Apache, MariaDB, PHP, and Perl. It contains all of those, and you can download again from the XAMPP website or SourceForge. So there are multiple ways you can download this web server. And here is the version for Windows, for Linux, and for Macintosh. So it doesn't really make any difference where you download it from, as long as you're downloading the correct version for the operating system that you have. And once again, if I read the description, XAMPP is a completely free, so there's no charge to downloading this software. Easy to install Apache distribution containing MariaDB, PHP, and Perl. The XAMPP open source package has been set up to be incredibly easy to install and to use. So let me go ahead and click on the XAMPP for Windows download, which is version 5.6.15. As soon as I click on it, the download will begin and automatically bring up my Windows Explorer, where I would have to save the XAMPP for Win32, the 5.6.15 version, and the installer package, which is the executable file, and the file extension is exe. So let me navigate to my downloads folder here, and under my documents, data files, and XAMPP. Notice at this point in this folder that I already created, there's nothing in it. So I'm simply going to save the installer file into this folder. So all I did was simply navigate to the folder where I wish to save the XAMPP software, and then I'm going to click save, and it's going to download the XAMPP for me. And notice on the bottom left, it shows me the download time as well as the size of the file. So it's about 109 megabytes. So it's going to take a little bit of time for it to download. But once it's downloaded, we can navigate back to our folder, the XAMPP folder, and then we can begin the installation process. So in this lesson, I simply wanted to highlight two important things. First, the concept of a web server, and secondly, downloading XAMPP on our computer so that we can make XAMPP and configure XAMPP as a web server. So I hope this helps. Practice downloading, and let's move to our next lesson. So in this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to install your XAMPP software that we downloaded in the previous lesson. So on the bottom left corner, Notice our download is now complete. To verify this download, I can always navigate to my XAMPP folder on my computer just to make sure that I have the executable file present or not. So let me in fact first demonstrate by just to make sure that we have the file by going to our Explorer. So I'm going to navigate to my Windows Explorer, and the folder called XAMPP that I created earlier is under Data Files and XAMPP folder. And notice here is the XAMPP Win32 file, executable file. I can obviously install directly from here by simply clicking twice on it, and it will bring up the XAMPP installer. Or if I'm downloading or it has downloaded right off of my web browser, I can simply click on the XAMPP installer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on XAMPP installer. This is going to open up the XAMPP installer, and it displays a warning message that says important because an activated user account control on your system, some functions of XAMPP are possibly restricted. With USC, please avoid to install XAMPP to your C drive or deactivate USC with the msconfig after the setup. Now what this does is simply is warning you that you're about to install a web server that is going to use certain resources that your Windows uses. So for example, such as ports. Once you install a web server, it will require some port configuration. And these ports are important because your Windows or your current web browser, for instance my Chrome that I'm using here to navigate to the internet, is using a certain port number. When I install my XAMPP web server, this XAMPP web server also requires a certain port. So therefore, I get a warning message that some of the functions of XAMPP may be restricted, but we'll fix that. So no big deal here. Simply click OK to the warning message, and it will bring up the XAMPP setup dialog box. Simply click Next. Here we can select the components that we wish to install. For instance, we need to install the server. Obviously that is checked. We need to install the Apache MySQL database, the FileZilla FTP server, the Mercury mail server, Tomcat, programming languages such as PHP and Perl, and other programming languages such as PHP MyAdmin, Webalizer, or Fake SendMail. Now, these are all various softwares that get installed when you install this free web server. But importantly, for XAMPP to function, we need the Apache, the MySQL, and then PHP MyAdmin. Because recall the basic functionality of XAMPP is three things, right? We need the database, we need the actual web server to serve the pages, and of course, the user that provides the instructions to the web server. But we're going to leave all the components checked. Click Next. Here's the folder, installation folder. So it says, please choose a folder to install XAMPP. Since I already have a folder created, I'm going to navigate to that folder. So I'm going to click on the folder icon and simply go to my Documents folder, my data files, and here's the XAMPP folder. Now notice this is the same XAMPP folder that we downloaded the actual software in, so we can install it in the same folder. Click OK, and notice your new file path is displayed. Click Next. The selected folder is not empty. Please select a different folder. Okay, so it gives you a warning message that, hey, wait a minute, we cannot install XAMPP in the same folder. You need to create a new folder that will contain the installation files. So click OK. Let's navigate back to our folder. Let me navigate down to my XAMPP folder here. Here I'm going to make a new folder by clicking on Make New Folder. And I'm going to call this XAMPP Install and click OK. Now if I click Next, XAMPP is ready to begin the installation process. And if you wish to learn more about the Bitnami for XAMPP, you can leave this box checked, or you can simply uncheck it and click Next. And setup is now ready to begin the installation XAMPP on your computer. I'm going to click Next, and the installation process begins. First, it's going to unpack all the files and then install XAMPP on your computer. Our setup is finished, and XAMPP asks us, do we wish to start the control panel now? And yes, let's click on Finish. And this brings up the control panel. And here, control panel is version 3.2.2. Now, before I start explaining the control panel of the XAMPP, a couple of things I want to add here is during the installation process or before you bring up the control panel, you may have to run the XAMPP setup.bat file. And that's a batch file. So let me first show you this, where this file is. So let's go to our Explorer, and under the installation folder, here's the setup.xampp.bat. And this batch file simply runs and clears the cache and simply runs a small script. For example, if I were to run this again, notice it brings up the command prompt and it will run the script. So this is an automatic process. So before you bring up the control panel, you may have to run the setup.bat and make sure that your C++ redistributable 2008 version is also downloaded and installed before you can successfully open up the control panel and finish the installation process. And by that, I mean, let's go back to the internet here. Let me open up a new tab and simply say Microsoft redistributable C++ and 2008 version. This is a required element of the XAMPP software download. So simply navigate to the download Microsoft Visual C++ site, scroll down, and this is where you would simply click on the download link and it will start the download process for the Visual C++ redistributable. And this is a runtime component of the Visual C libraries that are required to run applications that are developed with Visual C. And since XAMPP is an open source web server, you would need this package to be installed. So just simply click on download, for instance, and it will start the download process. And once the download is complete, you simply click save and run the download. I already have this installed and run. So just keep that in mind. This is also one of the components that you may run during the installation process. And if you do so and you do get a message, it will specifically tell you to download this and install it. Okay, so I just wanted to cover this so that you know. So let's cancel. Let's go back to our control panel here. Two of them open. Let me close one. Here we go. Perfect. So here's our XAMPP control panel version 3.2.2. And notice the services are Apache, MySQL, FileZilla, Mercury, and Tomcat. These are the options that we had selected during the install that we wanted them to be installed as well. But in essence, we will only use the Apache and the MySQL to configure our web server and to be able to create websites and host on this web server. So at this point, our installation is complete and our XAMPP control panel is open. So practice downloading and installing XAMPP. In the next lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to configure our control panel before we can start using it. So with this, let's move to our next lesson.
Welcome back to Lesson 3 of WordPress Development Crash Course from Zero to Hero. In this lesson, I will teach you how to create your own database, and then after creating your own database, how to download WordPress from the internet onto your local host and where to download the WordPress, or in other words, which specific folder do you need to download your WordPress in so it gets installed in your database, which you will create in this lesson. So let's move on. First, we have to make sure that our Apache and MySQL are running properly. Then you need to open your browser and type in localhost and your port number, which was 8015. We'll press enter and it will redirect us to our dashboard. Now we have to go to phpMyAdmin, where you can create your database. To go to phpMyAdmin, you can simply click here, or you can write phpMyAdmin in the address bar, and it will take you to your phpMyAdmin. Now, to create a new database, you need to click New, and it will ask you to write your database name. So let's name it Claydesk e-learning. Okay, and now we have to click create. Now as you can see, Claydesk e-learning has been created. So after you have created your database, which is Claydesk e-learning, now you have to download WordPress in your database. So you'll open a new tab and go to WordPress.org, which is the main WordPress site. Over here you'll click download WordPress and it will give you a link where it says download WordPress 4.4.1, which is the latest version, and it says that it's a zip file which is of 7.4 megabytes. So you'll click this and it will prompt you where you want to save your WordPress zip file. So make sure you save or download the WordPress file in your XAMPP folder. You'll go to that folder which you created while downloading XAMPP and go to htdocs. Now this is the specific folder where you need to download your WordPress. Double click htdocs and it will open up that folder, and you have to make sure that you download your WordPress zip file in htdocs, because if you don't, your WordPress won't install in your required database or in your local host. Click save and it will start your download. So as it's a big software of 7.4 megabytes, it will take a couple of minutes. So we're done with this lesson, and in the next lesson we'll extract WordPress files in htdocs so the WordPress gets installed into our database. So stay tuned, keep practicing, and let's move to our next lesson. Welcome back to this course. In the previous lesson, we created a database named Claydesk e-learning and also downloaded WordPress from the internet into the htdocs folder. Now in this lesson, we'll extract the WordPress, as the WordPress file which we downloaded was a zip file. So we'll extract the WordPress zip file into our htdocs folder. So first we need to locate our htdocs folder. Here it is, and as you can see, our WordPress has been downloaded in our htdocs folder. So we need to extract WordPress, as this is a zip file, and to extract zip file you need a software named WinZip. And if you have WinZip, it's good, and if you don't have WinZip, it's not a problem. You can easily download WinZip from your browser. So we'll go to our browser and type download WinZip, and it will open up a couple of links from where you could download WinZip. I recommend you to go to the WinZip website where it says www.winzip.com. Click this link and it will open up the page where you could download WinZip easily. You just have to click download WinZip now. It will open up where you want to save WinZip or download WinZip. Locate the folder where you want to download WinZip and click save. As I've already downloaded WinZip, I do not need to download it again, so I'll close this Windows Explorer. So this was how you could download WinZip. Now getting back to our htdocs folder, you need to extract WordPress. After your WinZip has been downloaded, you will right click on your WordPress and go where it says WinZip. It will open a couple of options which say extract to here, extract to folder, etc. So you click extract to here, and your extraction process will be started in a couple of seconds. And as you can see, it automatically creates a WordPress folder in your htdocs, and the extraction process has been started. It takes a couple of minutes to complete this extraction process. Now as you can see, our extraction has been completed and a new WordPress folder has been created. Now we simply need to go to our browser and type in localhost, our port number after the colon, and WordPress. Instead of phpMyAdmin or dashboard, we need to type WordPress and press enter. Now as you can see, our WordPress has been successfully installed, and it gives the WP admin where you could now install your WordPress. We will do this installation in the next lesson. Stay tuned, keep practicing, and let's move to our next lesson. Welcome back to WordPress development crash course from zero to hero. So up till now, we have downloaded XAMPP, created a database on our phpMyAdmin, downloaded WordPress, extracted the WordPress files, and now the next step is to install WordPress into our database so we could create our own website. So first we need to check that our Apache and MySQL are running properly. If they are, then we have to minimize this and go to our browser and type in localhost :8015/WordPress, and now after WordPress we need to write WP admin because we had installed WordPress, and now we need to install it onto our database. So we'll click enter and it will take us to our WordPress setup. We'll choose our language, which language we understand. As I understand English, I'll select English and click continue. So now, this is an important part. It says welcome to WordPress. Before getting started, we need some information on the database. You will need to know the following items before proceeding. Number 1 is database name. Number 2 is database username. Number 3 database password. And number 4 is database host. And number 5 is table prefix. So basically, this says that we need to know the database name, database username, database password, and database host, which we have created in our phpMyAdmin. So as we have done that step earlier, we'll click let's go. So now here it asks us the database name. So our database name was Claydesk e-learning. We'll type it in, and now we have to write our username. So the default username for WordPress on our local host is root. If you do not write root in this as a username, you will not be able to install WordPress, and the password must be left blank. So our database host is localhost and table prefix is WP. So basically, table prefix is that if you create multiple databases, to differentiate between those databases, you can either write 2, which means second database, or 3, which means third database. So we're gonna create only one database in this course, so we'll leave it as it is and click submit. Now it will connect to our phpAdmin and check if we have written all the correct details, and it says alright Sparky, you've made it through this part of the installation, and if you are ready, it's time to install. So this means that we entered all the information correct, and now we need to click run the install, and WordPress will be installed on our database. But first, we need to write the information. It says that please provide the following information. Don't worry, you can always change these settings later. So we'll write the site title. What's our site's name? I'll enter Claydesk e-learning, and now this could be any username. You can choose your own username, so I'm choosing Clay123, and your own password. So I'll hide it and write my own password, and then your email. So you need to write your email, and then this doesn't matter because you're on a local host, so it doesn't really matter if you uncheck or check this box. I recommend not to check this, and then you click Install WordPress. And now your installation will be completed in a couple of seconds, and you will be redirected to your WordPress dashboard. So it says success, WordPress has been installed. My username was clay123 and my password was your chosen password, which I wrote in the previous step. So I'll log in and it will take me to the WP login. I'll enter my username and in the password tab I'll enter my password and hit enter. And this will take me to my WordPress dashboard. And as you can see, this is the WordPress dashboard. Now I will explain to you what's our WordPress dashboard in our next lesson. So stay tuned, keep practicing. If you have any questions, just hit the discussion tab and type your question in. I'll try my best to answer your question. So stay focused and let's move to our next lesson.
In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate working with the dashboard of our WordPress platform. Now, we did install WordPress in the previous lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to elaborate some of the features and functionality of the WordPress platform. So before we can open up our WordPress, we need to ensure that our XAMPP server is running, and both of these services, the Apache and MySQL, are running. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Start on the Apache as well as the MySQL. So once both of these services are started, only then you'll be able to connect to your local host using your web browser. And here we go. Both of these have successfully started. I can minimize my XAMPP control panel. And let's go to the URL and let's connect to our local host, which is :8015 was our port number, and then dashboard. In order to connect to the WordPress platform, I can simply navigate by typing WordPress right after my host, and it should open up the web page. Okay. Now, for instance, at this point, this is similar to a website, in fact, and I can simply click on any one of these links and it will take me from one page to the other. And as soon as I hover over any of these links, notice on the bottom left corner, this side, you will see the URL of that link. So let me go ahead and hover over the hello world, and notice on the bottom left you will see the URL of this web page. So if I click on hello world, for example, one of my recent posts, I'll be navigated to this particular page. Obviously, we have not done anything yet. We have not configured the website, or we've not even begun the process of creating a website. This is the default structure of WordPress website. So let me go back, in fact, to our main homepage here. And in order to connect to your dashboard, we need to log in to the WordPress platform. So let's go ahead and try to log in. So I'm going to say WP admin. The WP-admin is the text they're going to type right after WordPress, and it will navigate you to the login screen. And this is where you will enter your login credentials. So it's clay123, and the password was password. Again, you would have noted these earlier in the previous lesson, okay? Because in the last lesson, when we installed WordPress, we provided the username and the password. So it's the same password and username that you will reuse all the time, every time you need to connect to your local host. And once you're done, simply click login, and it will take you to the WordPress dashboard. Now, the WordPress dashboard is fairly straightforward. It's not that difficult. For instance, on the left side, you'll see the navigation pane where you can click on posts, media, pages, comments, appearance of your theme, for instance, plugins, users, tools, and settings of your WordPress blog. On the right side, you'll see various widgets, for example, such as At a Glance, Quick Draft, WordPress News, Activity, and so on. So think of the WordPress platform as a set of blocks, right? So you have this space. All you need to do is fit in blocks that do certain things or have a certain functionality. Whether you can program those blocks using programming languages, such as Java, PHP, CSS, or any other scripting language, or you can simply customize and configure those set of blocks to fit into that space. So WordPress essentially functions on this concept. Okay, so for instance, here's our title, which is Claydesk e-learning portal. If I were to visit the site, I can simply right click or click on this. It will open up the web page, but it is recommended to open your site in a new tab, so you don't have to go back and forth. You can simply navigate from one tab to the other and have both of these open, because you'll be working with both of them simultaneously. So let's click on open link in new tab, and here's our web page, and this is the same web page when we connect it to our local host. Okay, so let's navigate back to our dashboard. Great. So on the left side, notice there's an option called posts and there's an option called pages. I want to point out a key difference between posts and pages. In WordPress, posts are blog, right? So if you're writing a blog, blogs have time, right? They have dates. So you post something on your blog for this week, and then you have another post next week, or you may wish to post daily. WordPress is going to maintain that. For instance, let me switch back to our website here. Notice on the right side, this section here, which says recent posts, comments, archives, is part of your blog, right? So every time you publish a page, it will add to this, and it will add to the archive section as well. And you can create various categories, and each category can contain different posts. So if you are thinking of using WordPress, or if you're thinking of creating a blog, then you would work with posts in WordPress. Okay, so let me switch back. So posts are, again, if you are creating a blog for your company, for your organization, or a personal blog, you would use posts to add pages to your WordPress. Pages, on the other hand, are static pages. In other words, this is how websites are traditionally created. For example, you can have a home page, then you can have a products page, you can have a about us page, you can have a contacts page, and so on. So if you are developing a website, or you intend to develop a website, you're most likely to use pages instead of posts. Now, your website may have a blog built in also. So in that respect, you'll be using both posts and pages. But for right now, I just wanted to differentiate the basic difference between posts and pages so we don't get confused, right? And media is, of course, all of the images that you upload to your website or to your blog. So by clicking on media and going to the library is where it allows you to store and upload multiple images, whatever it is that you wish to use on the website. Comments area stores all the comments of different users within your blog. So user visits your blog, likes your article, and wants to post a comment, you'll be able to see all these comments here. Similarly, appearance is your actual structure and configuration of your WordPress platform, such as themes. Themes are nothing but pre-built and pre-configured, pre-structured sites, entire weblogs, entire websites that you can install and then subsequently customize. The customize option, for instance, allows you to customize your existing blog. Widgets, as I mentioned earlier, in WordPress, think of widgets as the building block. So it's just a block, a piece of code or element where you would go and customize your widget and insert it on your web page. Similarly, menus are straightforward. For example, menus could be about us, contact, homepage, services, and so on. So you can create various menus in WordPress to be displayed on the page. Similarly, header, background, and then you can of course go to the editor and use PHP language to edit your website as well. So if you're not comfortable with customizing or configurations and you wish to get into the code, then you would go to the editor. And I'll demonstrate each of these as we move along. We'll be pretty proficient with these by the end of this course, including the editor. So not to worry at this point, I just want to demonstrate the basic functionality and the elements within the WordPress dashboard. Alright, plugins are very popular, very powerful. These are, again, think of them as just a small piece of blocks. They do certain things. For example, you can install a plugin called Contact Form, and embed that plugin onto your web page. So every time a user comes in, fills out a form on your website, and submits a form, and you get the data, right? So there's a plugin for that. There's a plugin for, there are hundreds and thousands of plugins, and we'll take a look at those as well. Users, for instance, you can add other administrators and allow access to other users to manage your blog or website, so they can log into the WP admin area and start configuring the dashboard. Tools, you can import or export, for example, your entire blog or website from one to the other. So for example, right now our WordPress site, including all the pages, are on this local host, and if you wish to transfer these pages to the online host or your other domain, you could do so. And finally, these settings contain general writing, reading, discussion, and these are standard settings that you can go ahead and take a look at and then configure your dashboard or your WordPress platform accordingly. So just a high-level quick overview of the dashboard itself, and let me give you another example. For instance, let's go to our site here, and let me in fact demonstrate now so that you can visualize the concept of widgets and menus on a WordPress site. So I'm going to click on claydesk.com, for example. This site was developed completely in WordPress, right? So for instance, you'll see a set of menu, right? So there's a menu called Why Claydesk, About Us, Services, and Contact, and there's a search also. So this is the menu that we talk about when I mentioned WordPress, right? So let me navigate back to our dashboard here, and here's the menu under Appearance. So for instance, if I were to click on Menu here, you'll notice I'll be navigated to the menu section where I can create my own menus. So I can give it a name, for instance, and create a menu. And here's the menu. Once it's done, it'll look like this. Similarly, if I scroll down towards the bottom of our website here, notice the bottom section has 4 columns, so to speak, right? So I have Insight, eDiscovery Partners, Useful Information, and Follow Us. So these are coming from widgets. So these areas are created using widgets in WordPress. So let me navigate back to the dashboard here, for instance. If I go to my Appearance here and click on Widgets, notice here, for example, Search is a widget, and Recent Posts, Recent Comments, Archives, Categories, and Meta. So these are again widgets that you can configure from the left side where it says Available Widgets, and you can drag and drop, and of course later configure it as per your own requirement. So the idea of WordPress is that you can simply use the widgets, menus, plugins, and customize your blog or website. And once you're done, it will look like a complete responsive website. So if I click on Enroll Now, it will take me to a new page, for instance, where you can actually enroll in various courses, and you can buy courses, and this is a complete e-commerce site. And our goal towards the end of the course is for you to be able to not only be able to create such sites, but also be proficient in programming end of things. So if you need to change something or require more complex capabilities, you could do so. So let's switch back to our dashboard. Click on Dashboard. We'll navigate to your home of your WordPress dashboard. So play with it, practice, and let's move to the next lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate the concept of cascading style sheets. And from here on out, we'll be getting into the web development, okay, and programming end of things. So I'm going to start off by talking about the cascading style sheets, or also known as CSS. So let me go ahead first, navigate to our site that is hosted on our web server. So it's claydeskcourse.webpages.com. Now, in the previous lessons, we migrated this site, okay, and I demonstrated how to migrate the site, migrate your database, and so on. So right now, this site is hosted at this domain. In order for us to navigate to our dashboard, simply go to WP admin. This is your WordPress dashboard. And it will direct you to the login page where you can simply provide your login. It's Clay123. Enter your password. and this will log you in to the WordPress dashboard. Here you can take a look at your existing pages, for instance. So in this case, we currently have about a single home page and a sample page and maybe an About Us page. Okay, so we didn't really do anything at this point to the website except for the fact that we took a look at some of the plugins, some of the basic WordPress integration. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click on home page and take a look at see what we can edit and how we can edit our home page. So once I'm on my home page edit area, notice there's a slider. This is a short code, and then of course just some basic text that we have, and we also created a simple hyperlink. Now at this point I can always type more text to the website, for instance talk about our services, talk about company background, for instance, or any other area. So if you're creating a website for your own self, obviously you'll have your text according to that particular requirement. Alright, in this lesson I'm going to demonstrate how to customize your existing theme or environment in WordPress, and also to be able to install new theme in WordPress. So for instance, what do I mean by theme, right? So let me in fact demonstrate what it looks like. So if I click on visit site and let me right click and open this link in new tab, and let me navigate to this new tab. This is what our home page looks like, right? So if I scroll up, down, you'll notice it's pretty blank, or a new default web page that comes with WordPress installation. Okay, so we're going to create our own website, right? This is the idea, and then of course later use programming and development and build those into our website. So the first thing before you start creating pages and you start going, of course there's a little bit of planning involved, right? So whatever you wish to create, whether you're working on a project or a blog or a website or your company site, you need to be able to understand and recognize the fact that you need a certain design of your web page, number of pages that are required, which page will contain which type of information. So for example, if you're running an e-commerce website, then you need a products page, and so on. So you get the idea. So you need to be able to plan and prepare, right? So make sure you have everything on paper or structured in a logical manner before you start creating websites on the fly, okay, or web pages on the fly. So let's go back to our dashboard. If I need to customize this existing theme, I can simply go to the appearance option and click on themes, and this will give me the available themes by default that are installed. So for instance, my active theme is called 2016, and this theme looks like this when I navigate to my page, right? So it has a certain structure here and posts on the right, heading, and so on. So switching back to our dashboard, so the 2016 theme looks like this. You can see it in the preview in the background also. If I wish to activate 2015 theme, which is a little different, in other words, notice in the preview the posts are on the left side. So if I click on live preview, for instance, WordPress is going to show you what this theme is going to look like. So if you implement this theme within your WordPress, it'll look like this. So you'll have a post on the left and then your page on the right. And of course, all I have to do is just click save and activate, and let me in fact do that. So let's click on save and activate, and WordPress is now going to change my complete theme or the structure. And notice I'm still at my local host, so this is my new home page now. So let me go back to the dashboard. Under appearance, navigate to themes one more time just to verify, and notice in this instance now my active theme is 2015. Earlier it was 2016. So you could change your theme accordingly. If I like the 2014, I can simply click activate directly from here, and it will activate that theme for me. If I need to go visit my site, so I can go on the top left, right click, open a new tab, and notice this is my new theme. And once again, a theme is just a pre-built structure, right? It gives you a little bit of structure for your navigation panel, your menus, and so on. And here's your page in the middle. So depending upon your own requirement, you can select your own themes. Now you're not just limited to these set of themes. There are thousands of themes out there that you can either download for free or purchase them. And of course, we'll work with the free ones first. So let me navigate back to the dashboard here. So how do we add themes, right? So let's say we don't like any of these themes. We need to add new themes. So simply within the themes page, click on add new. And there are two options of adding. Either you can upload an existing theme that you've saved as a zip file that you may have downloaded earlier from another website, or you've bought a theme from another website and you wish to upload that theme. You can do so by clicking on this option. Or you can click on the search themes and click for a specific name of the theme that you're looking for. Third option is to simply navigate and scroll down and take a look at all of these themes that are available to you that you can install. So for instance, if I need to preview the theme before I install this beta theme, I can click on the preview and it will give me the results of this theme. Okay, so I can scroll down and take a look at just the basic structure of what this theme looks like, perhaps the type of fonts, the color scheme, and so on. And if I don't like it, just cross this out, go back, and select another theme and preview it. For instance, the Eminent theme, I can preview, and here's what this theme will look like. Okay, so again, depending upon your own requirement, you can install the theme accordingly. Make sure it's a free theme, right? Most themes are to be purchased, but there are several that are free as well. Okay, so let me go ahead and let's take a look at, let me first find a theme. There's a theme that I like called Serif. And of course, you need a whole day to search for these themes, by the way. There are hundreds and thousands of themes, and each theme looks the best once you take a look at it. So I'm going to scroll down and see if I can find my Serif theme here, and here it is. So let me in fact go ahead and install this theme. So I'm going to click on install, and what WordPress is going to do, it's going to install the theme as my default theme on my WordPress platform. And it shows me that WordPress is installing theme Serif Lite. The version of this theme is downloading and install package. It usually takes a minute or so, or even less than a minute. It usually takes less than a minute to download and install the theme. So it's not a huge piece of software that it's downloading, and it's simply a small zip file, and it downloads and installs the theme. And once the theme is installed, you can simply click on activate, and it's going to activate the theme for your WordPress. And once it's activated, notice it shows you that your current theme is now Serif Lite, and you can customize it and work with this. And just to be sure, if I were to navigate and visit my site one more time, notice my home page is now going to take the shape of the Serif theme with the same colors, the menu for instance, and the structure. And notice on the bottom, I'll also get a few of the widgets as well. Okay, great. Let's go back to our dashboard. So once our theme is installed, we can click on customize and work with building our web pages. But before I end this lesson, let me click on pages here. So if I click on pages option from the left navigation, notice there are a couple of pages that are displayed. First is the test page, and then there's a sample page. If I click on the test page, for instance, which is also the front page or the home page, WordPress takes me to the editor, and I can simply type and change text on this page. A couple other things quickly. Let's navigate to settings option here. So if I click on settings, under general settings, I can change the site title, for instance, the tagline. I can say something like I love WordPress, the website URL, which is my local host, the email address associated to this, the user role, that can be a subscriber, contributor, author, editor, or the administrator for this site. The time zones I can change, and of course the week starts on, and so on. So just basic general settings you can change for your site here. Under reading, for instance, this is where you can specify a static page. And this static page implies that when you open or you go to your home, you'll get to this page. Well, not this one. This is an old themes here. Let me close this out. There we go. So this is our home page now, right? So this is a static page that I've associated within WordPress by going under settings and reading. And here's the front page called test page. If I'm writing a blog and I'm not using WordPress to create a website, then of course I can select this option called latest posts and I can link it to a default post page. But here, since we're building a website, or we're about to build a website, rather we'll select the test page as our front page, and of course I can choose the sample page because there were only 2 pages that we saw earlier under the pages option, right? So I'm going to leave it as test page. Of course, save settings once you're done making any changes. So I hope this helps. In this lesson, I demonstrated how to navigate and finding a theme that you like and then installing it for your website. Practice, and let's move to our next lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate the concept of HTML language and tags that we use within HTML whenever we're creating our web page, site, or blog. So from within our dashboard, let me first navigate quickly to our pages here. So let me click on pages, and this will take you to the various pages that you have currently available that you can edit and change. So this is our test page. In other words, this is our home page. So let me quickly open this. This takes us to the editing area where we can change the title of the page and of course the text as well. So first, let's change the title because we want to call it home page. It's easier to identify. So I'm going to give it a new name. I'm going to call it home page. And then of course our text that goes on the bottom area. For instance, at this point it says this is a test page, and I'm going to change this to say welcome to our new website. Hope you enjoy working with WordPress. Okay, great. So just simple changes. At this point there's no coding, no nothing, just simply navigating to your WordPress dashboard, going to pages and opening a page to edit. If you like to preview it, you can of course click on the preview changes before you can update, right? So make sure you preview everything that you do. So in other words, even if you were to change anything on this particular page, you need to preview it first before you can update your pages, because once you update, your page is going to be live on the local host in our case, and if you're working on an online web server, then your site would be live. So let's click on preview changes and it will show you your new changes that you made to this page. Welcome to our new website. Hope you enjoy working with WordPress. So let's navigate back to our dashboard here. Now within WordPress, it's really simple to use, such as, for instance, if I need to make the word welcome in bold, I will simply select the word and click on the letter B here on the menu, and it will make the letter bold. And notice what WordPress does, it places a tag called strong and then your text, and then of course it closes the tag with a backslash inside. So this is an example of a tag. The reason why you see these tags, because you have the option where you've selected the text. If I were to see the visual part of my tab here, for example, if I click on visual, it will simply show me the bold text. It's not going to show me the HTML language or the tags. I will only be able to see the HTML part when I click on the text tab. And above here on the menu within the text tab are some of the basic HTML tags like bold, italic. I can create a link, I can do a quotation for this text and so on. I can do an image, unordered list, so forth. There are hundreds of tags available. I will give you the list of tags as a PDF document that you can download as a resource. But for right now, let me switch to visual here. If I need to, let's say, make the word website here in italic, I can simply highlight the word here and click on the italic option on the menu, and it will change the word to italic. If I need to see the HTML code that makes this word in italic, simply navigate to your text tab here, and notice it will tell you that the website or the italic tag is EM, and then of course your word, and then of course it closes the HTML tag. So HTML tagging is simply getting to know various tags that you like to apply to your text. For instance, if I need to center all of my text, I can simply write my own tag something like center. So all tags begins with a less than sign and then ends with a greater than sign. And of course, I like to end the tag at the end. I'm going to say something like center and close the tag. So everything in the middle here between the two words center and then center at the end, my entire text inside the tag will be centered. If I click on preview, for instance, navigate to my tab here, notice it is now centered. So again, all of the text is centered because everything that falls within the tag is centered. So let me navigate back to our page here. So similarly, you get the idea, right? So it's a basic starting point of understanding HTML tagging language. And WordPress allows you to do programming right within the editor. So either you can use the visual aspect of it, and notice if I click on visual, my text is centered and I can align left or center or align right. So depending upon my own requirement, I could do so. If I need to go back and not center it, I can always go back to text and delete this tag at the end. And of course, I must delete the tag in the front. And preview changes, navigate to my tab here and notice my text is now on the left side. So this way you can play with some of these tags. Some of these are basic tags. And once again, I'll provide you a whole list of tags that you can work with. Let me give another example. Let's go to visual here. Let's say let's add more text. So here's a quotation that I want to add. We are going to create our own e-commerce website. And I wish to quote this, right? So I highlight the entire text, for example, and I simply use the block quote. If I click on preview changes and navigate to my page here, notice it just block quotes the entire text for me. So there are multiple options, like I mentioned earlier. Go back to our site here, and if I wish to uncheck the block quote, it's going to remove the block quote. Similarly, if I need to insert a hyperlink, right? So for example, this e-commerce website, I need to create a link, a hyperlink to another page, whether it's on my own website or an external page. I can simply highlight, click on the insert edit link. It brings up the dialog box where I can enter the URL that I wish to link this page to. So for instance, let's link it to our home page or any one of these pages, for instance, and I have the option to select open link in a new tab. So every time a user clicks on this particular link, a new tab on the browser will open. And I click add link, and here's our link. Before I preview, let me show you the HTML behind the scenes of this link. So let's switch to our text tab here, and here is the HTML tag. So the anchor tab is ahref equals, and then of course the link that you specify, target, and then underscore blank means a new tab, and then of course your text, e-commerce, and your tags are closed by a \a. So essentially all of this is simply creating a link, a hyperlink to a certain text using HTML. And the best way to know more about HTML is practice using these tags within your text, just so that you can experiment on multiple tags. And there are again hundreds of tags that you can take a look at. But I just wanted to give you the fundamental concept of implementing HTML within your text. If I were to preview the changes now, and let's go to our page here, notice this is now a link. So we're going to create our own e-commerce website. If I were to click on this, it's going to open a new tab on my browser and take me to that page. Perfect. Let's go back to our editor here. If I remove this target blank, as I mentioned earlier, this part, if I delete this part, for example, and now preview the changes, switch back to our website here. Now what will happen when I click on this link now? Earlier it opened a new tab, but in this instance, since I deleted the blank aspect of the HTML tag, if I click on this link now, it's going to use the same page and open the page within the same tab. It's not going to open a blank tab. So this way, again, let's go back, you can customize your own tags as well. If I change the URL here to say something like WordPress.org, of course preview changes, and now if I click on the e-commerce website, notice it's going to take me to the WordPress.org webpage. Great. So you get the idea. This way you can start creating text, building text on your website, your web pages, and add your hyperlinks to those as well. So in this lesson, I wanted to demonstrate the concept of HTML and how to work with some basic HTML tags and how WordPress handles those tags. In other words, you can either have your visual editor or you can do entire text using HTML language. So I hope this helps. Practice, and let's move to our next lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate moving forward the concepts of widgets and menus within our WordPress platform. So far, I've explained the concept between posts and pages. We have also developed and edited a certain page using HTML language. Next, I'm going to show you what the widgets and menus mean under the appearance option. So widgets, like I mentioned, recall, are just like blocks, right, where you can use and implement on your website. So first, I'm going to talk about widgets. So let me go ahead and click on widgets here, and it takes you to the widgets page, where on the left side it'll show you the available widgets. And to activate any one of these, for example, archives, calendar, custom menu, categories, and so forth, we simply drag and drop on the right section of the same screen. So at present, we have certain widgets in place, such as search, recent posts, comments, archives, and so on. These are all part of the sidebar widget. And then of course we have our About Us section, footer 1, footer 2, and so on. And each of these, if I click on the drop down arrow, you will see some sample text as part of these widgets, right? So you can customize them as per your own requirement. But first, how do we know which widgets are being used on our website? In order to see that, let's navigate to our website. In other words, let me click on our Visit Website, right click, open a new tab, and here's what our page looks like so far. So we have a title here, a nice logo, and then of course our menu displays two things, home page and sample page. And on the right side, you'll notice these look very familiar. All of this information, the recent posts, comments, archives, categories, meta, for instance, is coming from, if I were to go back to my dashboard, coming from my sidebar. So if I change anything in my sidebar and update, it will update accordingly on the web page. For instance, let me click on the drop down arrow next to meta here, and then I'm not interested in this to be displayed on the page. So I'm just going to click delete, and it's going to delete this section from the web page. If I go to my web page again and simply refresh, notice there's no more meta option here. Similarly, if I navigate back, click on categories and delete this option. Similarly, I can delete the recent comments, for example. And don't worry, they don't disappear. We can always add them back. Okay. And recent posts, since we're doing a web development page, right? We're creating our own e-commerce website eventually. We don't require any posts to be displayed on our page, and we don't want any archives either. So I'm going to delete everything except the search bar. So if I go back to my page here and simply reload, you'll notice pretty much everything disappears, which is nice. So we start off with a fresh blank page, essentially. So widgets are pretty powerful, and of course you can use some of these widgets as well, or you can ignore them if you choose to. You can add more widgets. So if I need to have, let's say, a text menu here, I can simply drag and drop by going up in the About Us section, for example, and give it a title such as Meet Our Team, and of course type the text, this is our team. And you can use HTML tags here as well. So if I need to make this bold, for example, I can use the tag B and then close the tag with a \B, and then of course my less than and greater than sign in between. Click Save, and within the About Us section we just added a widget call that contains the text Meet Our Team. So if I were to navigate to my website, refresh, go to my sample page, so here we've just added the About Us section and a widget. It may not display on the page at this point. We need to do our settings, and depending upon our own layout and settings, we would then adjust the widgets accordingly. But you can create as many as you like. Next, I want to show you the menus. So under Appearance, and if I click on Menus, I'll be navigated to the Menus page here. And here For instance, our menu structure is displayed. For example, right now, my home page, I have a couple of home pages. Let's take a look at what those are. It looks like they're being duplicated, so I can just simply delete one of them. Let's say if I remove one of these, and I have my sample page here. So I have two sets of menus, my home page and sample page. And once again, if I go back to my site, here are the two menus, my home page and sample page. So let me reload and make sure we have our home page and our sample page. If I click on sample page, I'll be navigated to this page. And if I click on home page, I'll go back to my main site page. Great. So let's go back. So this way you can simply work with your menus as well. If you need to add a menu or a link to the menu, you could do so by either going to posts or custom links or categories. So for example, if I were to go back to my pages here, my recent pages are home and sample page. Now notice these are the only two pages that we have so far on our website. So if you need to add a third page to this menu, obviously it makes sense to have the page first and then add that page to your menu structure, right? So for example, I have the home and sample page, right? If I need to have the About Us page, I need to first create a page by going to pages, right? So you need to have a page or a number of pages before you can start adding them to your menu structure. So let me in fact go ahead, quickly demonstrate. So let's click on pages. Of course, WordPress says, do you wish to save the changes, because I've changed the menu structure. So I'm going to say stay on this page, and I'm going to click on create menu. And then let me navigate back to pages, and let's create a new page by simply clicking on add new. And WordPress comes up with a new page. I can give it a title. I can say something like About Us. And at the bottom here, meet our team. And of course, since I'm in the text tab, I can use the HTML tags, right? I can either manually do so, such as I like to display them in bold, or I can go to the visual editor and then change it accordingly by highlighting it and using the italic font. So either way that you're comfortable with. If you wish to code in HTML, then of course you would use the text tab. And once you're done, let's preview first before we publish this page. So just to take a look at how this page is going to look like. So it's going to look like About Us and then meet our team. Great. Let's go back and then finally publish this page. So now we have, if I go back to pages, notice WordPress displays 3 pages: About Us, home page, and then sample page. Now if I were to go back to the menu by going to appearance and then menus, notice my About Us page is displayed as the most recent. If not, I can always view all and it will give me all the pages, right? Or the most recent one displays just the list of the pages that I've been working with recently. So I'm going to select About Us and then I'm going to click on Add to Menu. And what this would do is automatically add a new item on this menu called About Us. And if I click on the drop down arrow, it just shows me the label. I can always change it here as well. I can move up one under the samples page, for example. If I don't want a separate menu, I can move it under the sample page here, and so on. So once I'm done, of course, I need to click on Save Menu here on the bottom. Now let's go back to our site, refresh, and here's our new menu called About Us. So now I have home page, I have my sample page, and I have the About Us page. And my URL reflects accordingly. The new page name is About Us. How do I know this? If I go back to my WordPress, go to my pages, click on About Us page, and notice here's the URL. And of course, I can always edit the permalink. In other words, it's a permanent link for my page. And once we get to the SEO part later on in this course, I'll demonstrate an effective strategy on naming your pages and so on. But you can always call it My Team or Team Page or About Us page and so on. So in this lesson, I wanted to demonstrate the concept of widgets and menus and how you can customize your WordPress environment. So practice, and let's move to our next lesson. In this lesson, moving forward, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a web page and further customize your WordPress theme so that it gives us a starting point for future lessons when we get into development programming languages such as PHP, CSS, and JavaScript or Java. Having a basic structure of your website is important. So let me go ahead and navigate to the appearance section here, and under appearance I'm going to click on customize. Of course, I can use this menu option, or I can directly from my dashboard click on customize your site. They're both the same, and this takes me to the customization area. And again, these customizations are pretty straightforward. These are just standard structure and layout of your web page or the site that you're designing. So for instance, the first option is site identity. I can click on site identity, and this will give me a couple of options such as logo, which is important because right now our logo is serif. Obviously we need to change this logo to our own logo. So I'm going to click on select image, and I can upload files from my own computer by clicking on select files, and make sure you navigate to the directory of where the images are. And of course you need to have those images already in place, right? Such as your logos or any other images that you wish to use on your website. So I'm going to go ahead and select, in fact, all of them. I'm going to upload them all at once, and I'm doing this by holding the control key on my keyboard and selecting all images and click open, and this is going to upload all images to my WordPress platform. And notice as WordPress is uploading, it shows me, for example, if I were to click on this logo here, it shows me the size of the logo, the date, the width and height, and of course the URL, the title, caption, alt text, which is alternate text, and this is simply when you hover over a certain image and certain text is displayed. So let's say we're going to go ahead and click on this logo here, and I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to call it Cletus logo. Caption is optional. Alt text, I'm going to use the same text, so simply copy this and paste it, and description is obviously the same as well. The reason why it's important to enter the alt text and description is for SEO purposes, the search engine optimization, which of course I'll take a look at and I'll demonstrate in future lessons here. But importantly, since we are adding images, I want to mention here at this point, then make sure whenever you're adding an image to your website, it has a title, alt text, and some description. I can also edit the image. For example, before inserting it, if I click on edit image, WordPress takes me to the editing page, and I can move the image, I can rotate the image. For instance, I can make the size smaller. So instead of 600 by 267 pixels, I can crop the image if need be. So for instance, once I insert the image on my web page and it's too large, too wide, or too small, I can always scale the image at any point in time. So once I'm done, I click on update, and let's go back to our media here, and this brings up the library of all of our image. Perfect. Let's navigate back to the customization by going to appearance and customize, going back to the site identity, and here again I'm going to go ahead and select the image and click on the image that we earlier had changed the alt text and description, which was this one, and click choose, and notice on our site our image is now changed. Our site title is Cletus e-learning portal, which is fine, and I'm going to change the tagline as well, and we're going to say e-learning made simple. I can also change the site icon. The site icon is one of those icons that you see on the top tab when you open or you visit a certain website. You notice the site icon being displayed. It is also called a favicon, if you will. So one of the same things. So I can always select the image here also and choose the smaller image. It's called the favicon image. Click select. And even though it's not displayed properly, I can always go back, close this, go ahead and select a different image. For example, how about this one? And let WordPress crop it for us. Click select, and WordPress says, all right, this is the image size. I can always drag, make it smaller, and I can always make it centered depending upon my own requirement. And once I'm done, click crop image, and WordPress is going to crop it and insert it. So notice on the top left tab now on our website, it says displays a small favicon, and then of course our main image is also being inserted. Great. Once I'm done, simply click save and publish once you're satisfied with all the changes. Next, let's go back to our customize by clicking on appearance and customize here. Let's take a look at some of the other options. For instance, let me navigate down to the widgets area, and then of course take a look at our footers. If I need to add a footer, I could do so, and then again, this depends on my own structural layout of my website, whether I do want this or maybe I want this later. It's up to you. Okay, so I'm going to close this for now, navigate to my site just to view by clicking on visit site, and our site looks pretty neat. It has a logo, a couple of menus here, and of course our main home page has some text. So next we want to be able to change our footer area as well. Okay, we want to have some address here, some email, and of course our telephone number, and maybe some social media icons and links as well. So let's go back to our dashboard, close this, and once you're in the customizer area, let's navigate to our general options. And under general options, there's an option called footer content. When you click on footer content, you have the ability to change the icon. If you don't like this green envelope for your email section, this one, for example, you can change by clicking on the image, or remove the image if you will, and of course change your email as well. So notice this is HTML tag, the anchor tag for a link, and the link to create an email. In other words, if I use mail2:contact@site.com, when some user clicks on it, your email client such as Outlook will open, and you'll be able to directly email from there. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to, say, for instance, support@claydesk.com, and of course I can move this bigger if I need some space. And then this is our text that is going to be displayed, so I don't need to have the email again, or I can say just something like email us. Okay, and notice on my footer automatically the text changes. Likewise, if I scroll down, I can always change the phone number, and I can type our own phone number, 646, and then the complete phone number, and change the number here as well so that it displays on the page. Perfect. And then lastly, our company address. I can simply type our company address, something like St. Mark's Avenue, let's say New Jersey, and our zip code. Okay, just a simple address, email, and phone number. Once I'm done, make sure I save and publish so that all changes are saved. Next, we can change some social icons, for example. So let me close here. Let's go back to our customize. And then under general options, the same option. Instead of footer content, I'm going to go ahead and click on footer social icons. And of course, here's our links for Facebook and so on. So I can type the actual links here. And notice as soon as I'm typing, everything is being changed for the link here for Facebook. So I can say facebook.com and then Claydesk as our Facebook page. Same thing for our Twitter link, https:// and then of course our Twitter link. You need to have those pages, by the way, your social media pages created already before you can start linking them. Okay, and similarly, I'm going to do one more here just for practice. For linkedin.com/ and then of course our LinkedIn address, and save and publish, and this will change some of the links as well. Okay, if I go back, I can change the copyright options also. So let me navigate back and scroll down and take a look at if there are any other changes that I wish to make to the basic structure of my page. But you can play with it. I give you the idea how to work with it. There are certain areas, for instance, that are not to be found in the customization area. For instance, where it says Serif Lite powered by WordPress. Well, it does not exist in this section. Okay, and I know you're going to be able to find, you're going to try to find it by going to each menu options, and you're not going to find the option to change this particular text. But really, we wish to change this text. We don't want the users coming to our site and finding out that this is a Serif Lite powered by WordPress. Well, this is supposed to be our own theme, right? This is something that our own branding. We don't want any other names. But how do I find this text? It does not exist in the customization menu. Anytime you do not find anything in the customization area or within the WordPress platform, we need to go to the actual code. Okay, and the programming language that is used is PHP, which is Pretext Hyperprocessor. So let me close this and show you that, in fact, how to get to your coding. Under Appearance, there's an option called Editor. So let's not worry about the customize our theme and pages and configuration of our pages. Let's go directly to the code so that you actually get to see what the code looks like. And if you don't find anything within your WordPress environment, how do we go to the back end of things and then finding out where things exist? So I'm going to go ahead and click on the editor under the Appearance menu here. As soon as I click on Editor, what WordPress does, it gives me all the templates on the right side of the screen, and on the left it shows me the actual code. Okay, and this is all PHP. But for right now, I just want to show you where the code exists and what it looks like. So for example, on the right side under templates, notice each of these are pages. So if I click on, for instance, the theme footer.php, it displays the PHP code that belongs to the footer.php. Okay, now within the footer.php, if I scroll down all the way to the bottom within my code, you'll notice that you'll see something like powered by, and then Serif Lite, copyright, WordPress.org. This looks familiar, doesn't it? This is exactly, if I go back to my site, this one right here on the bottom here. So this is our footer.php. So there are areas where you can change in customization, but there may be times where you would not see the text to be changed. And obviously it is understandable because whoever is giving you the theme, they want to make sure that you keep their name, right? It's not that easy to change, but now we know. Okay, so let's go back to our editor, and here, for instance, within our code, I'm going to say powered by, and instead of Serif Lite, I'm going to highlight this and say Claydesk. Okay, and I'm just going to demonstrate this. So don't worry about all this code at this point. Just understand the concept that if you don't find anything in the customization window, for instance, you'd have to go to your editor and change the code. So I'm just going to change it briefly here, and subsequent lessons, when we actually get to our programming languages, we'll always come back and change lots of other things, right? So I just changed simple text here. Make sure I update the file, and a word of caution that you need to make sure that you have a copy or a backup copy of this entire code, right? So one way, of course, is to select all and control copy, and then save it in a text file such as Notepad or Word document and call it footer.php as a backup. So you make sure you have a backup, because WordPress doesn't allow a direct backup in this window, right? So you need to make sure you have the backup code. So once you've made the changes, click Update File. As soon as your PHP file gets updated, let's go back to our site, refresh, and notice on the bottom here it'll now say Claydesk powered by WordPress. Okay, so likewise you can always go back, revert back to your editor, your footer.php file, and change all of these settings. Perfect. So in this lesson I demonstrated how to create and further customize your web page by using the customization option in WordPress and going to our PHP environment and customizing certain areas within your footer. And of course you can do the same and apply the same concept to other areas within your web page. So I hope this helps. Practice customizing your WordPress theme and environment, and let's move to our next lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate the use of plugins in WordPress platform. So let's begin. Jumping right in, let me navigate to our dashboard here. Just click on Dashboard. And then under Appearance, there's an option called Plugins, right? So plugins is, again, something that you can install, and there are hundreds and thousands of plugins available. All you have to do is just search. All you have to do is search for the right plugin that is appropriate to your website that you like to use. So let's click on Plugins. First, to see how many plugins are installed already in our WordPress. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Install Plugins, and this will navigate to the Plugins page where I know I have 2 plugins, right? And these are by default installed, and just to protect you from spam is one of the plugins, and the other one symbolizes the hope and enthusiasm of an entire generation summed up in 2 words, right? So just a couple of standard plugins that are installed when you install any theme. But what if we were to use some additional plugins? For instance, we would like to add some sliders, right? Some interactive sliders on our home page. At this point, our home page is pretty standard, right? It's a static home page. There are various plugins that we can find. So by clicking on Add New, we get to the Add Plugins page. And of course, various categories are displayed, such as featured, popular, recommended, and favorites. And I can scroll down and try to find different plugins, right? These are similar to like apps, right? Install apps, and then you configure them according to your own requirement, right? So I'm looking for sliders, right? So I'm going to say something like slider, for instance, and hit the Enter key in the search criteria, and WordPress is going to go out there on the net and find tons and tons of plugins that has this keyword called slider. And I can navigate down and take a look at the reviews and the number of installs that are out there that people have installed on their platforms or blogs, and so on. Okay, so just play with them depending upon your own requirement. So for instance, I'm going to use this meta slider. So I'm going to click on Install Now. Before you can actually install now, you can always take a look at more details, right? So let me right click and open this more details into a new window, because I'm going to show you this, and navigate to the new window before we install the plugin. You can read more about the plugin, see what this does. It says the most popular WordPress slider plugin. It creates slideshows with meta slider. Is fast and easy. You can simply select the images from the WordPress media library and drag and drop them, and it will create a slider for you. You can take a look at the installation process, see some screenshots of what the slider looks like, and so on. Okay, so this gives you an idea of the slider and so on. So let me close this. Let's go back to our dashboard and click on Install Now. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Install Meta Slider. And once you install these plugins, you can always remove them. Okay, so nothing is permanent in WordPress. You can remove them and install another one. Of course, you'd have to reconfigure that slider, but it just takes a few seconds to install the plugin and click on Activate Plugin, and WordPress is going to add the meta slider to your existing plugin page, right? And it's activated. In other words, as soon as it's activated, notice on the left side on the navigation pane, you'll see another option called meta slider. And once I see this option, I can simply go to the meta slider and start configuring this plugin. Pretty straightforward process. No programming at this point. Okay, we'll get to that later. But for right now, just basic, easy to use configurations and customization in WordPress. So let's click on create our first slideshow. It brings up the slides page, and here you can add a slide. For instance, I'm going to go ahead and add a slide. Of course, I need to pick an image, right? So let's pick this image. I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to say slider clay desk here, and of course copy it and use the same as my alt text, my description, and I'm going to add this slider. I can change the width, the height, the effect, for example, from fade. I can have it swirl, rain, and so on. Okay, so depending upon my own requirement, the theme, arrows, and so on, and certain advanced settings. This is important, the usage. There's an option called shortcode. Okay, whatever you create a slideshow or a slider or use a plugin. Okay, and again, I say this is important. It's easier to use your shortcode, right? And what this does, it allows you to insert the slider onto that page, or insert the actual plugin onto that page, or the area within that page, right? So it'll come clear once we are finished with creating a slider. Then I'll demonstrate how to use this shortcode, but just the concept, right? Great. So I've added this first slide. Of course, I can always use the caption here if I choose to, or I can provide the URL. So someone clicks on the slider, they'll be navigated to another page. So I can say something like HTTPS, and then of course type my URL and say something like e-learning, and I can click on new window. So if they click on the slider, a new window will open and they'll be navigated to this URL. Okay, let's add another slider. How about this person jump in here, and of course change my text, and I'm just using this sample text here. Of course, when you're actually doing it for yourself, you need to make sure that you provide the appropriate text. Okay, so click add to slider, and I have my second slider. I'm going to use, in fact, the same link. Simply copy it and paste it for this link also, and click on new window. So just two sliders. Width, height, for right now it's standard. Let's take a look at by clicking on save and preview, or just save. Both options are available to you. Now remember, before we save and preview and go further, you want to be able to copy this code, right? So I'm just going to highlight this and Control-C on my keyboard to copy it, right? Or just remember it says in brackets meta slider ID equals 25, and you'll see in just a minute how we use this shortcode. So once we have this meta slider configured, I'm going to click on save and preview, and this is going to show me before actually implementing it on the site. Okay, well, this guy seems pretty large. Oops, let's go back. Our first slider is okay. Second slider, well, the image doesn't look really great, so I'm going to cancel, remove this person by clicking on the delete slide. Click OK. Yes, I'm sure I want to delete this. And of course, add a new slide. How about if I change and use another image, right? Click add to slider and see what that looks like. Of course, I can always change the heights and width of the slider as well. So click save and preview, and let's see what these two sliders look like. So here's my first slider, and it's going to fade away to my second slider. Perfect. This looks great. Two sliders, right? So close this, and once I'm done, I'm satisfied. I'm going to go ahead and click save, and now my sliders are created and saved. But they're not on my website. For example, if I were to go to visit my site, notice nothing happens, right? There's nothing here, because so far all I've done is I've created these sliders by downloading the plugin and simply configured the plugin. To insert a slider onto our page, we will need to go to a page and then use the shortcode on that page. Let me show you this. Let's go back to our sliders, scroll down. Here's our shortcode. Just make sure you copy it again, just to be on the safe side. Control-C, go to our pages, and our home page is right here. So I'm going to click on home page to edit, and right above, or the very first thing that I like to insert is the, let me go switch to the visual tab here, it's easier to see. Perfect. So right above the text where it says welcome to our new website, I'm going to insert the shortcode. Now I want to show you something else here. If I enter the shortcode here within my visual tab and preview the change, notice my sliders show up, right? And then text follows. Pretty neat. Similarly, I can change the slider to be displayed below the text. So simply remove the slider from here and then go to the next line, for instance, and paste the shortcode here. Click preview changes, and this time the slider is going to be below my text. Pretty neat. So let me go back and in fact move my slider up here and then update the page, right? So if I update the page, now my slider is permanently displayed on my home page. So if I were to go and visit my site now, notice I'll see my sliders. And notice there's a link to these sliders, right? And recall, I linked the first slider. If I were to click on this link, it'll open a new window and it will take us to the page or the URL that was specified on that slider. And this was the Claydesk e-learning page. So this way you can create your own sliders. You can take a look at where you want to place those sliders on your page, whether it's on your home page or any other page that you like. So let's go back to our dashboard. So plugins are a great way of incorporating various elements onto your website or different pages. Okay, and we'll work with a few more plugins in the subsequent lessons, and those are helpful when you're doing development in WordPress. But for right now, I just wanted to show you quickly how to go about finding a plugin, adding a plugin, and then configuring a plugin. So I hope this helps. Practice, and let's move to our next lesson. So we're at the course conclusion of the Practical CSS Website Development Crash Course. Now in this course, I covered how to create a website using CSS and also touched base on the HTML concept. We began by understanding and taking a look at the style.css file, how to edit it, how to make sure that we create backup copies before we start working with or within our WordPress environment. Moving forward, we also took a look at how to edit the .css file and how to incorporate our own custom code and create classes using CSS. Next, we took a look at how to insert images using CSS, including the header area and the footer area of our web page. And we customized our website using CSS. So for instance, such as the menu customization, we created the code regarding the hover effect. We inserted a full background image, and below, if I scroll down, we also worked with our footer area and we used CSS to insert the footer image. We also took a look at the inspect element tool, which allowed us to go behind the scene and take a look at our various elements on our web page, identify them, and then make the necessary changes using CSS and HTML. And in the last module, I demonstrated how to work with a responsive website. So for instance, if this website needs to be seen on any mobile device or a tablet, it would automatically adjust to display properly on those devices. So I've put together a reference list of complete CSS tags. So for instance, the property and description, I've compiled a whole list for you to take a look at as a reference point. So when you're using these properties within your CSS coding, it'll prove to be a helpful list. So there's a whole list. I can scroll down and it's in alphabetical order, so you can take a look at various properties, also the description. For instance, the border left here, it will set an elements left border, value is one or more of a color, and so on. So there's a whole list, and I've put this list in the resource area. You can download it if you like. Similarly, I have my HTML tag reference list also created, and this is a separate PDF file. You can also download this as well, and this reference list shows you a complete list of HTML tags that you can use to develop websites. So with this, I'd like to thank you for enrolling in this class. I would welcome any questions that you may have regarding this course, or otherwise I'll be happy to assist you with any of your questions. Feel free to leave reviews for this course. These reviews are helpful to me as I develop additional courses. With this being my 5th course at Udemy, I always learn from my student reviews. So thank you once again, and I look forward to having you in my next class. In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate the concept of responsive web design. Now, we've been working with our site here. Let me scroll up, which is pretty much responsive to begin with. Most of the themes that you work in WordPress, or when you create sites, we insert certain meta code such as the viewport and so forth, and I'll explain what that is in just a minute. But for right now, I want to go through this lesson and I'm going to show you what do we mean by responsive web design. Basically, whenever you view a website, whether you view it in Chrome browser as we're doing right now, or any other browser such as Internet Explorer, Safari, and so on, or more importantly, when you view websites on your mobile device, okay, or your tablet, your website must automatically adjust to that device. Otherwise, your page will be out of proportion, okay? And that is exactly what we mean by the responsive website design. In other words, your web page automatically adjusts to the design of your device or the type of device that you're using. In order to test whether this particular website is a responsive website or not, we can simply go online, or you can open up this particular URL in your mobile device and take a look whether it is responsive or not. But online, we can also check. So I can go to something like mobiletest.me, just an online website, and there are hundreds and hundreds of sites out there that will test your site in smartphones and tablet emulators. So for instance, if we need to check up on our site, I'm going to copy the URL from our homepage here and go to the mobiletest.me site, and I'm just going to open up the Apple iPhone 5, and where it says type a website address and hit go, I'm going to paste the website address and click go, and it will bring up the emulator, and notice our site is displayed within this emulator, and I can navigate by clicking on the menus, and they're responsive as is. So pretty neat. Similarly, you can test other devices such as, let's say, Apple iPad. Just click go, and it will show you size of your site within the Apple iPad. So this way you can design responsive sites, and like I said earlier, most of the themes that we install in WordPress, they are responsive, but some of them are not. And what happens when they're not? How do we code? How do we create a page that is responsive? So let me go ahead and go to a dashboard here. I'm going to quickly demonstrate how to create a page that is based on the responsive design. So let's go to pages, and currently we have about 3 pages. I'm going to add a new page by clicking on add new, and I'm going to give this page a name. I'm going to call it responsive web design. And in the bottom here, I need to make sure I'm in the text tab, right? Not the visual editor, but the text editor. Because most of the times when you're working with HTML5 language or your CSS, you need to be in your text area. And this is where I can begin to create a page that will give us examples of a responsive web page. So I'm going to start off with essentially a tag called style. So I'm going to define a style here first. And next, I'm going to use some CSS. And once again, you can embed CSS right within your page. If you're creating, let's say, an HTML tags, you can mix and match. But keep in mind that these are independent languages, and let's keep them that way. But we can use them interchangeably and combine them and make use of their flexibility. So here's the article that I want to use here. And I'm going to make this article, let's say, float, colon, to the left, and just defining some properties. Set my margins, colon, I'm going to say it's about 5 pixels wide, and then also my padding, which is again 5. The width of this article box or the block is going to be 300 pixels. And of course, I need to remember to add semicolon at the end as the rules mandate. And after my width, I need to specify the height of this article box. So the height would be, I don't know, something like 300. Let's make it a square. Put a semicolon. Then maybe I'd like to give a border to this article as well. It's about 2 pixels wide. And I'm going to make it solid and color, let's say black. Perfect. Close my curly braces here once I'm done defining the properties. And then I'm going to end the style tag as well. Next, let's add some text, right? So I'm just going to say some simple heading 1. And I'm going to say it's web developer course. Close my heading tag. And that's heading 1. Of course, 1 being the largest, and then as we move to heading 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, the heading size becomes smaller and smaller. Okay. Next, I'm going to also show you the heading 2 tag here, just so that you can see. And I'm going to say resize this responsive page. And I'm going to close the heading 2 tag. Okay. See how easy it is to code in HTML5 and even using CSS. Once I've set my headings, I can always preview. Let's go back and preview the new page that we're creating, as opposed to creating the entire thing and then taking a look at it. So if I click preview at this point without updating it, I should be able to see what it looks like. So right now, here's my heading 1, web developer course, and then resize this responsive page. So far, great. Let's go back. Next, let's add a div class article, right? Since we've defined article on the top, so I'm going to use the div class equals article, close my tag, and here I'm going to use heading 3. I'm going to say about the web developer, and just some sample text that I'm adding just to show you the responsiveness. And then I'm going to use the tag called P, which is a new paragraph. And I can say using CSS, PHP, Java, and some additional text, right? So you get the idea. I'm going to make this text a little larger based on the other articles that I'm going to create. So I'm going to write some more text. Welcome to this course using WordPress. Development, including programming. I'm enjoying and having fun. So notice, since I began with the paragraph tag, I have to end the paragraph tag as well. And once I'm done, I can also close the div tag. So here's my first block where I've defined my class of article. Let's preview and take a look at what it looks like. Scroll up, click on preview, and perfect. So we have our first article box based on our margins and paddings that we have identified. Okay, and notice how automatically the text adjusts within this box. Let me create another one. So next, we're going to do another div here. I'm going to say div class equals article, and this time I'm going to say H3, which is my heading 3 here, for instance. And I'm going to say most wanted tutorials and class. And I'm going to close the H3 tag. Next, I'm going to add a paragraph. And I'm going to say SharePoint. Class is great. Close my paragraph and then do another paragraph. All I'm doing is just building here just to show you what the blocks of code or the responsiveness of the article blocks look like. So here I'm going to say Excel tutorial, wonderful, and then close our tags as well. So you get the idea, right? And of course, at the end, we must close the div tag. Because recall, every time you're using tags, there's an opening tag, and then there's a closing tag. So similarly, let's scroll up and preview one more time, and our page looks like this. Pretty neat. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to create another one. Okay, this time I'm just going to copy the article from the top here and paste to save time. Okay, and just make some changes here if need be, or you can leave the same text, or you can add text to it. And once you're done, let's click on preview one last time just to make sure we have all of our boxes here. Okay, perfect. And let's hit publish. Let's double check one more time. So here is our style, okay, that we created, and then we applied the style of this class to various parts on our page. And what this article does, by the way, this dot article, what this does, it doesn't really have any effect on the page itself. So for instance, let me go back to the page here. Notice the dot article allows independent, or it is rather an independent part of this entire page. Okay, in other words, it's fully responsive. So no matter where you see, whichever device, you should be able to view it easily. So let me go back and finally publish this page called responsive design. Perfect. And the name of the page is right here. The permalink is responsive-web design. So if I click on it to open a new link, I should be able to see my new URL for this page. Obviously, I haven't really created any menu for this page. If need be, we can always go back and add a menu item or a link somewhere on the page that links to this particular page. So I'm going to copy this once our site is updated, and let's navigate to, let's say, Internet Explorer. So I'm just going to open up a new browser here, paste the page here, hit enter, and notice it says responsive web design. That's the title, and it opens up pretty nicely in Internet Explorer as well. So I hope this helps. Practice using CSS, creating classes, and then your responsive websites. And let's move to our next lesson.